are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, May 9th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So I didn't screw up what day it was, because I know yesterday I just lost track of time there, but we rebounded today. So already off to a better start than yesterday. But let's get into what we are going to discuss. So something I'm going to start doing for the next several shows is do my own divisional rankings for each division, each team, post NFL draft. So we're going to start off with the NFC East. So I'll get into that in a second. Then in the second part of the show, I'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys more so. More comments made by Stephen Jones regarding where the team is at in terms of competing for a championship. They're kind of hanging around the rim is what he said. So I wanted to get into that, his comments there. Then in the third part of the show, I wanted to talk about the Green Bay Packers and the expected growth for them, especially offensively going into the 2024 season. Some comments made by their offensive coordinator, so I wanted to get into that. And then the final part of the show, I'll talk about DeMeco Ryans' response to J.J.Watt, talking about coming back to the Texans if he is needed. So that's the rundown for the show for today. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the NFC East. And I hope everybody is doing well today on this Thursday. So let's get into this topic here. So, like I said, this is going to be something I'm going to do for the next several shows. And, you know, we got the schedule coming out next week and new format. So, yeah, this will be a part of that. So we're going to start off with the NFC East. So, of course, you have the teams that consist the NFC East that consists of the Commanders, the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Eagles. And I'm going to start from the bottom, work my way up. So, at number 4, I'm going to put the Washington Commanders. I'm going to rank them 4th. Now, they did make a lot of moves this offseason. They signed some veterans on the offensive side of the ball in Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler. They also signed Tyler Biadasz from the Cowboys. They brought him over. And they signed Nick Allegretti from the Kansas City Chiefs. So they had made some moves on the offensive line. They also signed Dante Fowler Jr., Bobby Wagner as well, Jeremy Chin. And, of course, with their first pick in the draft, they took Jayden Daniels. And hopefully for Washington, that is their long-term answer. Some of the other moves they made during the draft, they drafted Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke McCaffrey, to add to that receiving core. So, yeah, I mean, that's what they did, some of the things they did with the draft. But I don't know. For me, I feel like the quarterback position, yes, you're hoping that Jayden Daniels is going to be their guy for the long term. But I don't know. For me, I just feel like Washington is still last in the division. And with the next team I'm going to talk about, they have some question marks at the quarterback position, and I understand that. But for me, I don't know. For me, I just feel like Washington is still going to finish last in the division. So that's why I'm going to put them there. Because the other things that they did, they also did take, Jazan Newton, the defensive lineman. And, they need to revamp the defense. The defense was bad last year. And, they traded Montez Sweat. They traded Chase Young. So they got to improve, they got to revamp that defensive line. Also, the secondary wasn't very good either. They did take a defensive back. Also in the second round, they took another tight end, another offensive lineman, Brandon Coleman from TCU. Like I said, they took Luke McCaffrey. They drafted a linebacker. And also, the other thing, too, is, Dan Quinn as the head coach. I don't know. I'm not really a Dan Quinn guy. I mean, I think with the young quarterback that they drafted, I feel like you want to go with the, more. I mean, I know, again, the Seahawks, they have a defensive-minded head coach. I don't know. For me, I feel like now in the NFL, you got to have an offensive-minded head coach. So, and I don't know. I just don't think Dan Quinn is that good of a head coach, because especially of how it ended in Atlanta. And he coached a talented Cowboys defense, but look at how they played in the playoff game against the Packers. It wasn't good. So, I don't know. That's just me. I'm putting the Commanders at 4. Then at 3, I got the Giants. And the Giants have a ton of question marks with the quarterback position, but I just feel like the Giants are still going to finish over the Commanders in the division. I really like the Brian Burns trade a lot. I think that's going to help out the defensive line tremendously to add him with Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. They addressed the secondary in the draft. Bobby Okereke turned out to be a really good signing. The linebacker, a position that's, has been trouble for the Giants in recent years, but they seem to have found an answer there. And then offensively, it's could be an issue, but I don't know. For me, I just still feel like the Giants are going to find a way to finish over Washington. Whether it's Daniel Jones or you got to go to Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito, I just feel like they're still going to finish over Washington. And they drafted arguably the best receiver in the draft, or at least top 2 receiver in the draft, in Malik Neighbors, to go along with some other guys that they have in Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalen Hyatt. They also did sign recently, I woke up this morning to them signing Allen Robinson to a 1-year contract. I mean, he's not the same player he once was, but it's for depth, a veteran receiver, so we'll see how that goes. And they're still waiting on what's going to happen with Darren Waller, whether he's coming back or not. So, and they addressed the offensive line this offseason. So, I mean, we'll see if it's improved this year. And I just feel like they will finish ahead of Washington. I like them and their coaching staff better than I do with Washington. But, I think Washington can be an improved team as well. But I don't know. For me, I still like the Giants over them. That's just me. But now we get to the final 2 teams here. And I'm actually going to put the Cowboys at 2. I'm going to put the Cowboys at 2. The Cowboys, to me, they just didn't get better. They kind of stayed the same. Now, that does not mean that they're not going to be a good team. They are going to be a good team. But I just don't think they really made any significant moves that move the needle for me. I think Philadelphia got better. I feel like Dallas stayed exactly the same. And, they really added through the draft. They didn't really do much in free agency. I mean, they brought in 2 running backs. One of them was a former running back in Ezekiel Elliott, who just spent a year away from the team, was with the Patriots. But, they drafted an edge rusher, a linebacker, a corner. They drafted a receiver. They drafted a couple of offensive linemen. Tyler Guyton, he's the first round pick out of Oklahoma to replace Tyron Smith. Again, I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on some of the guys that they took. They did address the defensive side of the ball, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see if this is where the impact players are going to come from what they did this offseason is through the draft, because I mean, they did sign Eric Hendricks to add to the linebacking core, but I don't know. For me, I just feel like you still got to put him at 2. And, I think Dak Prescott will go out there and have a good season. I think this team is going to be good, but I don't know. For me, I just feel like they kind of stayed the same. And it's look, you can go look at Jerry Jones and say, well, why did he say we're all in? Because all in can mean many different things, and the fan base kind of took it as, well, they're going to make significant upgrades, and they didn't really do that, other than like they added through the draft. And we'll see how this draft class is, and the Cowboys do a very good job at drafting. So we'll see how this draft class is. But for me, I'm still going to put them at 2. I think they're still a very good team, but I think the Eagles, I think they're the number 1 team in this division. Now, the Eagles did not play well against the Cowboys last year. They barely squeaked by the first game they played them, and then the second game the Cowboys dominated. But the Eagles, they got 2 new coordinators. They really revamped the defense. They went all in on the defense. I mean, they drafted a couple of corners. Cooper DeJean from Iowa, he could be playing safety possibly. They brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They signed Bryce Huff from the Jets. Devin White they brought in as well, added him to the linebacking core. So, and then on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, they got playmakers all over the place. Saquon Barkley now you bring in to go with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. And then you have Jalen Hurts, who's looking to bounce back from a rough ending to their season last year. I just feel like the Eagles got better. The changing coordinators with Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, I think this team should be back to being a, title contender. And if not, well, then we got problems. But and I've said this all along. I believe it's it comes down to the Eagles and the Cowboys with this division. Like, you could say whatever you want, like, oh, I'm being biased. The Giants should be last because the quarterback position is a huge question mark. Well, Jayden Daniels hasn't played it down yet, and you got to give him respect though, because he won the Heisman Trophy. He was taken with the number 2 overall pick. And the Commanders, you look at their offense, I mean, it's not bad. I don't think it's bad. Terry McLaurin is, right now, I'd probably rank him ahead of any Giants wide receiver because we don't really know what Malik Neighbors is going to look like when he gets to the NFL. We got to see how he is. But, you got to give Terry McLaurin respect. He's probably the best weapon, the best receiver out of those 2 teams. And they got some other good receivers in Jahan Dotson as well. A couple of decent running backs. I mean, the running game, I think, right now I take Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler over Devin Singletary, even though Singletary had a good year last year, but I don't know. Also, Eckler's starting to decline too, but he's not going to be. That's going to be more of a committee in Washington, I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like you could do whatever you want with those 2 teams. I mean, you could say, like I said, you could put Washington ahead of the Giants because they have. You hope that they have their quarterback of the future. The Giants don't have that. It could be a carousel the whole year. But I just feel like for me, the Giants are going to win more games than the Commanders, and I would put them ahead of Washington in my opinion. But that's just me. But that's 3rd and 4th. 1st and 2nd, it's the Cowboys and the Eagles until these teams close the gap. But as a Giant fan, you go into last year and you think, okay, maybe this is the year they close the gap with Dallas and Philly. No, the gap got wider. Now, I think going into this year, in terms of other than the quarterback position, I think they're building something on defense, and I think, getting one of the top 2 wide receivers now, you have a number 1 wide receiver, that really helps. and you hope the offensive line is improved. And Devin Singletary is a decent player. So it's not like I don't think the Giants' running game is just going to be non-existent. I think there'll be some games where they have problems running the ball, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a little too optimistic with the Giants, but I mean, well, if I was too optimistic, I'd be saying, "Oh, who cares who they have at quarterback? They're going to win this division easily." Because I'll be honest, 2021, Joe Judge's second season with the team. I said, you know, and I think the Giants are the best team in the division. This is before the season, and man, was I wrong. But you know what? It's partly because Joe Judge fooled us, because we thought, man, he's going to be the next great coach in Giants history. No. And it's all because of his introductory press conference. See, you go back to, now, it wasn't like he was saying, oh, I'm going to bite off people's kneecaps and all that like Dan Campbell did. But his press conference, I loved his press conference, his opening press conference. And I myself and many Giant fans got hooked on that. And 2020, they still finished with a losing record, but they had a chance to still win the division because Washington made it with a losing record. And then the following season, everything went wrong. The team was awful. And, yeah, we got fooled. So that's why I just can't be too positive on the Giants. But just to run through the rankings again, so I got the Commanders at 4, Giants 3, Cowboys 2, Eagles 1. That's my NFC East post-draft rankings. So let me know what you guys think. What would you change? Let me know what your rankings are. Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk more about the Dallas Cowboys. We'll talk about something Stephen Jones had to say, their vice president, and we'll talk about the Cowboys and their championship window, and if it's if it's possible that they could maybe get to a championship. But I mean, I've talked about them a lot, so you kind of know. If you watch the show a lot, you kind of know where I'm going to go with that. But that's what we will discuss when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk more about the Dallas Cowboys. Some recent comments made by Stephen Jones, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on what he had to say. So this is kind of, this is what he said just regarding the Cowboys and kind of where they're at in terms of, getting close to winning a championship. So this is what he said recently. We've won 12 games 3 years in a row. I think that's right at the top in terms of what teams have done over a 3-year period. And we're hanging around the rim. We've just got to go up there and grab it, to use a basketball term, and dunk it in. We're hanging around the rim. We just got to get the job done. And they've been hanging around the rim for a while. Now, some might say they're not even at the rim. They're I don't know, they're at the free throw line. No. I wouldn't say they're hanging around the rim. They're trying to put up a shot, maybe. Because, I talked about this when I did the segment on, I think it was when I was talking about Dak Prescott being under pressure this year. They haven't made it past the divisional round in years. The last time they were America's team, it was before I was born. These are the Cowboys that I know. And again, it's a team that, recently, wins 12 games. It's a good team during the regular season. They get to the playoffs, and they either lose in the wild card round or the divisional round. They don't go any further than that. Now, I actually did pick them to go to the NFC Championship game. I did, because I said the NFC is not that tough. The Eagles are in a free fall, and if they beat, and I had them winning against the Buccaneers. If the Cowboys won and the Eagles won, they both lost. But if they both won, they would have played each other, and I think the Cowboys would have beat them again. And I thought the Packers were good, but I just said, Dallas is at home, and it's a new era, no more Aaron Rodgers. I just was like, I think the Cowboys will take this one. And boy, was I wrong. Dak Prescott did not play well. The defense did not play that well. Well, it was a lot worse than that. And, they kind of just been in that same spot. Now, you go back to the early 2010s, and I just, it was funny when I was younger, because it was just like, you go 8-8, 3 years in a row, and they all end the same way. It's you're playing each team got a chance. The Giants, they went on and won a Super Bowl. Then Washington, and then the Eagles. They all got a chance to beat the Cowboys in the final week of the regular season and knock them out of the playoffs. Well, getting into the playoffs. It just 8-8 3 years in a row. And then 2014 happens, and they were a very good team. Very good team. DeMarco Murray had that great season. Tony Romo played well. And you thought, okay, maybe this is it. The Cowboys are back, right? They win that that controversial playoff game against the Lions with that pass interference call that, they threw the flag and then they picked it up. And then the Cowboys won that game, but then they lost to the Packers. And yes, on a controversial call with, Dez Bryant going up, and he caught it. He did catch it. He did. I used to try to spin it and be like, nah, he didn't catch it because he didn't. The ball popped up when he hit the ground, but he did take a couple of steps, so that should have been a catch. But I always say this though, even if he did catch it, even if the Cowboys did score, there were 3 minutes left on the clock. Aaron Rodgers was getting the ball back. Now, again, we don't know what would have happened, but I'm just saying, Aaron Rodgers had time to go down the field and score again. But whatever. That was one of the best playoff games ever. Those in my lifetime, those two teams. But then look what happened. The Packers then lost the following week because they couldn't hold the lead, and Brandon Bostic muffed the onside kick when Jordy Nelson was right there to catch it. Yeah, that was a tough one. That was as an Aaron Rodgers fan at the time, that was a tough loss. So. But, yeah, that was 2014. Then you go to 2015. Tony Romo, unfortunately, gets hurt. Comes back later in the season. Gets hurt again. And that 2015 season. Kellen Moore actually was playing quarterback for them at one point. So, yeah, that season was... that season didn't go anywhere. And then 2016, Romo gets hurt. But you got Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and the team goes out there, has a good year. They were the 1 seed, lost to the Packers. 2017, they didn't make it. 2018, they made it, lost to the Rams in the divisional round. 2019, they didn't make it. 2020, they didn't make it. 2021, lost to the 49ers in the first round. And then 2022, you lose to the 49ers again. And then last year, you lose to the Packers. So it's just, look, are the Cowboys one of the best teams in the NFC? I think they're a top 5 team. Top 5. I would rank the Eagles over them. I'd rank the Packers, the Lions, and the 49ers. I think all those teams are better. But fortunately for them, they don't play in a tough division. It's really between them and the Eagles. And I think, both teams, both games that we're going to see, because, you figure one of them is going to be on Sunday night, and another one's going to be, the late game on Fox, late afternoon game on Fox, depending on where you are. Both those games should be, well, I say that, but, the Cowboys did dominate them on Sunday night last year. But I think the Eagles are going to be better. So I think both those games should be very competitive. And, I just did my rankings. I think the Eagles are better. I think the Eagles got better. I think the Cowboys, they're still going to be good, but I don't think they have gotten significantly better. So I feel like they're not really hanging around the rim right now. I feel like last year was the year to do it. And they didn't do it. And teams are going to be better. And I think when they play the Lions, because the Lions didn't get a chance to play them after, the whole thing with the offensive tackle and, the whole miscommunication with the referees and on whether he was eligible or not to be an eligible receiver. The Lions are going to want to, get revenge for that because they only lost by a point. So, I'm excited for that matchup when we see that again. But, yeah, and the Packers, they put up 48 points on the Cowboys. Now they're better. The Packers are going to be better. Jordan Love, he will play like how he did towards the end of the year for a full season now. He's going to put it together for a full year. They got better. The Eagles got better. The 49ers are still the 49ers. I'm still putting them at 1. But the Cowboys, yeah, that's where you're at. You're at 5 for me. So they got to go out there and show that, that they could do it, but I don't think they will. Stephen Jones, I think he also said, he thinks that Dak could, lead them to a championship. Well, Dak hasn't led you to an NFC championship. And I think I said this recently too, but it's true. They haven't gotten out of the second round. And we'll see what happens after this year because they still got they got some stuff to figure out with their players, their star players, with CeeDee Lamb getting his contract situated, and so he's here long term, and with Dak and what they're going to do with him, Michael Parsons. They got to figure that they got to figure that stuff out. It's going to be tough, but for me, the Cowboys are not hanging around the rim. Now, are they close to the rim? Yeah, I say that. I don't think it's not like they don't have a chance to do anything. Because they're still a good team. But are they a championship team? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that they could make a run, but I've said that the last couple of years. Because for a few years, their defense was bad. And then their defense improved. I thought 2022 could have been it. But that ended up not being the case. And then last year, just how the conference shaped out, I thought that they could make a run to at least the championship game and lose to the 49ers again. But that didn't happen. Didn't happen. So, teams got better. So, I really think they're further away from the rim. Not significantly, but they're at least not hanging around the rim. So, but that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Where are the Cowboys in your NFC rankings? A couple of rankings I did. So I did I've done the NFC rankings kind of before, but yeah, I mean, that's where they're at. I mean, I just think that teams got better. Cowboys kind of just stayed the same. But we'll see how their draft class is. If their draft class turns out to be where they get their impact players, then okay. But, maybe Zeke goes out there and has a really good year. I don't know. He said he's got something to prove, so we'll see how true that is. But anyways, so before we go to second break, just want to remind you guys again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about the Green Bay Packers, some things that their offensive coordinator had to say. I'll talk about them and my expectations for them as well. I got an alert on my computer here, so apologize if you heard that. But anyways, that is what we will talk about when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers, a team that I'm high on going into the 2024 season. I wanted to talk about a couple things that their offensive coordinator had to say about the team. So let's get into that. So their offensive coordinator, Adam Stenovich, I hope that's how you pronounce it. This is what he said about the offense, where they're at, and what we could see in 2024. So he said, it's night and day. Night and day because last year you didn't really know what direction you could go yet, because you didn't really know how much can you put on these guys' plates and allow them to go out and execute. Now everyone has a year under their belt, so to speak. It's been great to just know what these guys are good at. We can go out there right now and just run plays, and it's not like we're installing everything for the first time. We can start experimenting faster and taking the next steps with the offense. You're always looking to take the next step. You have to keep evolving, so it's just a matter of what's our best next step or next two things that we want to do, where you can see, all right, is this the direction we want to go? So that's what he had to say about the offense. He's speaking highly of it. And, I mean, you go back to last year. I mean, this was the youngest team in football. And, they didn't play like they had no experience once they got to the playoffs, because, we talked about the Cowboys. They put up 48 points on them. Collectively, because I know there was a pick six. And then, they had a chance to beat the 49ers, and, they fell a little bit short. They had the lead. But, it didn't happen. But I think this team is going to be very good. They brought in Josh Jacobs, who's still, I think, only 25. And then you signed Xavier McKinney in the secondary as well. You also had the draft, of course. Because they drafted an offensive lineman in the draft as well. But I just feel like the Packers are going to be a very good team, and I think they're really going to, make it hard for the Lions to repeat as division champs again. Yeah, they also another thing is they expect the running back that they drafted, Marshawn Lloyd from USC, to be a productive player for them, to add to that explosiveness in the backfield to go along with Josh Jacobs. And they did bring back A.J. Dillon, but A.J. Dillon's kind of been a disappointment. When he first got drafted, his rookie season, he had that big game against the Titans, and you thought, wow, this guy's going to be really good, and it just really hasn't panned out. But they brought him back. I think it was like on a qualifying offer, which I didn't know they even did that in football, but because they don't really use it that often. But they brought him back to go along with Josh Jacobs, and like I said, they drafted another running back in the third round. They took Javon Bullard, the safety from Georgia. They took a linebacker, Jordan Morgan, the tackle from Arizona, which some people think they maybe reached on. But, they took a couple of linebackers. They took a couple safeties, a couple of tackles. It's that's what they did. So, we'll see, how it goes. But, that's what they ended up doing in the draft. But I just think with Jordan Love and his, second full season now being the starter for the Packers, I expect big things out of him. And he had a strong finish to the season. He's playing like an MVP candidate towards the end of the year. You hope that carries into next season, and I definitely think it will. And the Packers are going to be looking to pay him, make sure that he's, secured long term, and I think they'll eventually figure it out. Like I said, I think he could repeat what he did, but he's got to go out there and prove it, of course. But you like the receiving core. I mean, it's still a young receiving core. With Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed. And a couple of young tight ends as well. I mean, you gotta like where they're at, and I think they could take an even bigger jump in year 2 with Jordan Love as their full-time starter. And the defense, I mean, they made changes there. Just like the Steelers with Matt Canada, the Packers just had it with Joe Barry, and he's gone now. So, you're hoping the defense can be better in 2024, and they could be a complete team. And maybe this is a team that could go on a run. But yeah, like I said, I look at them as a top 5 team. I actually I have them over the Eagles right now. Like, I have them and the Lions above the Eagles and the 49ers. Eagles right now I still got it 4. But that could very well change because, the Packers and the Eagles will be playing in that Brazil game to start the year. So we'll see how those two teams match up against each other. Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts did play against each other a little bit because Jordan Love had to come into the game a couple of years ago now. Well, it's going to be a couple of years when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Rodgers' final year, Jordan Love came in through that touchdown pass to Christian Watson. Well, that was really all Christian Watson. That was a short pass that, a slant route, I believe, that Watson took to the house. But still, Jordan Love did play in that game. That final score was what was it, like 41 to 31 or 30? It was like a really high scoring game. It was on a Sunday night. But, now we'll see how Jordan Love does playing the Eagles for a full game. With the Eagles and, like I said, the moves that they made on the defensive side of the ball. That's going to be a fun game because you got Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. They both switched teams, and now they're with the Eagles and the Packers now. So you got that. You got these two quarterbacks going at it. Improvements on the defense. They both changed coordinators. The Eagles also changed coordinators on the offensive side of the ball with Kellen Moore. But yeah, that should be a fun game. That should be a fun game. But yeah, I mean, go back to what Stenovich said. Yeah, I mean, now it's all about let's continue to grow as an offense because now we know how to, run this offense. Now let's try to, add more stuff in and, be even better. And yeah, we'll see what how they are. But like I said, I think the Packers are going to be really good. And actually, the NFC North we'll cover tomorrow. So tomorrow, actually, I will be having 2 guests on the show. I believe for just the first 2 segments. But I will have 2 guests on, 2 hosts from the from other shows on the GSMC Sports Network. I'm going to tease that. I'm not going to tell you who they are, but I mean, you do process of elimination, or you can just guess. But it's people that do shows that so they'll be on for they'll at least be on the show. I don't know if for the full show, but they in some capacity. So make sure to tune in tomorrow. And one of the segments I think we'll do is the NFC North rankings after the draft. So yeah, we'll get into that. And then some other stuff as well. Some other stuff. I think we'll also talk about the draft, like our surprises from it, things like that. But yeah, that's tomorrow. So, but yeah, back to the Packers though. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, I pretty much said everything that needed to be said with them. But could this team make a run at the Super Bowl and get to a Super Bowl? I mean, I think so. I think they kind of proved it to you last year because, they should have beaten the 49ers. And then they would have played the Lions, who they already beat. Now, I don't know if I don't know if they would have beaten the Lions again in Detroit. But the 49ers I look at as the standard of the NFC right now. And the Packers, they had a chance to beat them. Same thing with the Lions, and they couldn't get it done. So, but I still got the 49ers at 1. But yeah, but with the Packers, I think they could definitely make a run. They proved it last year when they were ahead of schedule. No one really expected them to go that far. So, I think the Packers could definitely make a run. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Packers. And how do you see Jordan Love performing? Because, I mean, Jordan Love could definitely be an MVP candidate. If he could carry over his finish to last year, other than the interception that he threw towards the end of the game against the 49ers, we get that Jordan Love, not the Jordan Love with the pick, but, all the other good stuff that he was doing prior to that pick, yeah, he should be an MVP candidate. And it's for me, it's going to be those 2 teams for the division. And I think the NFC North is one of the best divisions in football. Now, the best division is the AFC North, but the NFC North is really good too. We got to see how Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy are, the 2 young quarterbacks that those teams drafted. And, I think, I think the Bears are going to be very good offensively. We'll see how J.J. McCarthy is in his offense, but he's got playmakers around him. So you think he is in a good situation. But right now, you got Jared Goff and Jordan Love. Those 2 teams, that's the top of the NFC North right now. So, but yeah, I expect them to be even better in 2024. And you hope that Jordan Love can continue his success from last season. And not be the Jordan Love that would, because in the middle of the season it was rough. It was rough for the Packers. But they put it together. They were able to figure it out. And you know what? I give Matt LaFleur a lot of credit because, when he first got there, they still had Aaron Rodgers. And yeah, they were winning a lot of games, but people were like, well, they still got Aaron Rodgers. But, then Rodgers leaves, and, the Packers were kind of up and down for a bit. And, well, when they were down, they were really down. But then they got right, and they played really well, and you got to give Matt LaFleur some credit, too. And that was not with Aaron Rodgers. That's not with Jordan Love. So, Matt LaFleur, I give him a lot of credit. And, I think he is a good coach. And now it's all about, now for him, let's see if he could try to get to, Super Bowl. Because, you've been to a couple championship games. You've been to the playoffs pretty much every year, except 2022. Now take that next step. So, yeah. But that's pretty much it. Talking about the Packers. Let me know what you guys think about them. Like I said earlier, where do you see them? How far do you see them going this year? Where would you rank them among the teams in the NFC? So when we come back from our final break of the show, we're going to take our final break. When we come back from that, we're going to talk about DeMeco Ryans' now response to J.J.Watt's comments on a potential return to Houston if he's absolutely needed. So that's what we'll do when we come back. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about DeMeco Ryans' response to J.J.Watt about, maybe a potential return coming out of retirement to play for Houston. So this is what he said. I talked about J.J.Watt and his comments. If DeMeco Ryans absolutely needs him, he'll be there. And this is what DeMeco Ryans had to say. He said, "I love to hear JJ saying he's ready. I've got his number ready to go in case we need him. I may need to make that call, so I'm happy that it's open for him." He said, I guess jokingly, "I need him now. I need to make the call right now. Anytime JJ's ready to go, I'm ready to go." So, I think that's joking around, but who knows? If they're kind of thin on the defensive line, if they're dealing with injuries and it's later in the year, then maybe he does make that call. And, part of me wants J.J. Watt to come back just because I would like to see him and back with the Texans and, at least go on one final run and, get to a championship game, maybe play in a Super Bowl, because that's what this Texans team can do, is they can go far. We talk about the Packers and how far they could go. The Texans are the same thing. What they've done and the culture and the team that they've built, they're going to be good for a long time. And J.J. Watt, is he going to come back? Probably not. But when I was talking the other day about Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt and who's more likely to come back, well, J.J. Watt flat out said, hey, if they really need me, I'm going to come back. And the Rams had that conversation with Aaron Donald. So maybe Aaron Donald does the same thing if the Rams need him. But at least with J.J. Watt, we heard him say, if they need me, I will come back. Because he's still in good shape. And, yeah, it's going to be different. You're going to have to adjust. If they sign him and he comes back, it's been a while. But still in good shape. And you figure if, he is going to come back, he's going to make sure that he is ready to go. And he's not playing a whole season if he does come back. So, but yeah, I mean, I just would love to see it because, again, this Texans team is really good. And, he experienced some rough years there in Houston. And, they went through different quarterbacks. They gave Brock Osweiler a big contract. And then, Deshaun, you thought it was going to be Deshaun Watson. And then just that whole thing just, got derailed with, stuff that happened off the field. And, then he goes to Arizona. And, the Cardinals had a good season. But then they made the playoffs. And, Kyler Murray did not play well. The Cardinals just did not play well as a team. And, the Rams knocked him out. And it's just he for J.J.Watt, you want to see, you would have liked to have seen him, maybe get a ring. And maybe he might have the opportunity to do that late in the season. But that would definitely come at the expense of, well, there's injuries on the defensive line. Because they added Danielle Hunter. You got Will Anderson, who they drafted last year. Danico Autry they got over from Tennessee. It's just I don't think J.J. Watt's coming back unless guys start getting hurt, and he even said it. It's like if they absolutely need him. So I mean it would be nice to see him come back, but again, it comes at the expense of guys being hurt. And, and unfortunately, yeah, players are going to get hurt. It's inevitable, unfortunately. Now, who knows what it's going to be like this year? I mean, last year we had so many quarterbacks get hurt, and hopefully we don't see that. But unfortunately, we're going to see people get hurt. And, the Texans, they might deal with some injuries later in the season where, yeah, they're going to have to maybe make a call and say, we need you. So, and, J.J. Watt said, I'll be there. And, we'll see if that ends up happening. But, like I said, I would like to see it, but it comes at the expense of injuries. But, yeah, I've said this on a previous show. You want to see certain players you want to see get a ring. And J.J. Watt is definitely one of those players. And we got a comment from Thomas Gage. He says, speaking of NFC, what do you think about the Bears pushing for the North as early as this year? So I did just talk about the Packers in the last segment. I'm going to be doing, tomorrow's show I'll be doing an NFC North post-draft rankings of each team. Now, I mean, it really all comes down to how Caleb Williams performs, I think. They gave him a lot of... They've surrounded him with a lot of talent. And you could go back and watch some of my previous shows, too. I've said the same thing. You go out, you trade for Keenan Allen, you traded for DJ Moore the previous offseason, you drafted Rome Odunze, you got Cole Kmet. You got a couple of decent running backs as well. You bring in DeAndre Swift. Defense played better last year. I mean, they got the talent there. For me, I still think I would put the Packers and the Lions ahead of them. I think they could definitely compete for a playoff spot, but I think more so with the wild card as opposed to the North. I think the North, I still look at the Lions and the Packers as being better. So, and the Bears, they could have swept the Lions last year. They split, but they could have beat them in Detroit, but the Lions had a late comeback. So, I would say, yeah. So I would say the Bears are kind of like that third team right now. He also said, I thought it was telling how much the Packers, Lions, and Vikings invested in their defense in this draft, considering how much it leaned to offensive talent. Yeah, I mean, there's not really any roster that I dislike in that division. The Vikings, I'm curious to see what they do with the quarterback position. Whether they have Sam Darnold start and then they kind of ease J.J. McCarthy in it, or are we just throwing J.J. McCarthy right in? But yeah, and then also like with the Lions, they also signed along with their draft, they also signed DJ Reader from the Bengals, which was a decent signing. I think he was coming off of an injury, but he was a good run stopper for the Bengals, and now the Lions got him. Yeah, and then I talked about the Packers draft class too. They drafted a safety from Georgia. Safety is kind of a position that they really needed to address. So, yeah, I mean, and also like with offensive talent, I mean, maybe the Lions, I know I talked about them needing another receiver. The Packers, I mean, I think they're kind of set with what they got. They did draft a running back. And the Vikings, I mean, yeah, you kind of need like that third weapon, which I think they did. Didn't they sign somebody recently? The Vikings? Because I know they lost Osborne, but I just want to look at their depth chart really quick. Oh, they got Brandon Powell. They got Trent Sherfield. But yeah, I mean, your top two weapons are Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and then T.J. Hawkinson is, your number 3 basically. But he's their tight end, of course. So, yeah, I mean it's Vikings still a big on Hawk's recovery. Yeah, that was a tough injury late in the year. So, I mean, we'll see how he bounces back from that. But I mean, when he's healthy, he's one of the best tight ends in the NFL. So, but yeah, he's kind of like the second or third option. But then they also got Aaron Jones too. So I mean, and especially if J.J. McCarthy starts playing in games, I mean, you're gonna have to lean on Aaron Jones, take some pressure off of him. But yeah, the Vikings, I feel like if they had Kirk Cousins, I'd probably rank them higher in the division. But I don't know. I feel like if they're starting out with Sam Darnold at quarterback, I don't know. Kind of got to put them last. So, but that's just me. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. But yeah, I mean with the J.J.Watt stuff, I mean, there's really nothing much to add. I really hope he comes back, but maybe he comes back later in the year. Maybe they just add him for depth. Depth, though. Maybe he comes back, he's a depth signing, and, he comes in as like a rotational player. Just so he can, at least try to help the Texans, get back to, the playoffs. And, well, I think they're going to make the playoffs and go far and maybe get somewhere where J.J.Watt hasn't gone before. Because I think the furthest he's gotten is the divisional round. So, get to a championship game and maybe get to a Super Bowl. But again, that's a huge what if. It's not something that is likely going to happen, but there's definitely a possibility. And then Thomas says again, if Houston had their first round draft pick this year, who do you think they would have taken? I gotta go back and look, cause where were they picking? Oh wait, no, cause they traded up with the Vikings, right? They traded with the Vikings because the Vikings got the pick to take McCarthy, right? Or I might be wrong there. Hold on, I gotta go back. I have to go back and look. I don't know. I mean, I feel like what do the Texans need? I mean, I guess would they maybe draft like a player on the defensive side of the ball, maybe? I'm not really too sure what they would have done, honestly. I mean, I feel like they would have maybe taken someone on defense because I feel like they're kind of set offensively. Oh, wait, yeah, the Vikings traded with the Jets. Yeah, because I was looking at it now. Mid-20s, I'm guessing. Yeah, I mean, I guess they probably would have taken someone on defense. Yeah. I don't know who exactly they would have taken, but, maybe, because, receiver, they're set. I mean, quarterback, they're obviously set. They're not going to take a running back. I mean, maybe somebody on the offensive line. Either the offensive line or the defense. That's really what I would have. I don't know specifically who, but okay, gotcha. Their pick was 27. Yeah, that's probably what I would say. It probably would have been someone on the defense. That's probably my guess. Because offensively, they're set. So that'd be my. I don't know who specifically they would take, but I would say they probably would have went with someone on the defense. And who was the first defensive player that was taken? It was like in the mid first round. Who was? I think it was Seattle who took the first defensive player. I have the. Oh no, it was the. No, it was the Colts. It was the Colts at 15. The Seahawks took the defensive tackle, Brian Murphy II from Texas, the next pick. But yeah, it was Leatu Latu from UCLA. He was the first pick. First defensive player taken off the board, and that was at 15. So he says Nate Wiggins would have been a nice fit, but of course he falls to the Ravens. They can't keep getting away with this. Well, I mean, look, the Ravens... I mean, you should be saying that about the Chiefs because, the Chiefs have won the last 2 Super Bowls. The Ravens, kind of came up short again. But yeah, good comments from Thomas. Appreciate the interaction in the chat. But we are going to we're going to wrap this show up here. So Thomas, thank you for the comments. Appreciate it. Make sure to tune in tomorrow. 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Ask us some more comments. My show is every Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So make sure to tune in tomorrow. And so that is all the time that we have for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out our other shows as well with everything else that's going on in the sports world. Make sure to tune into those. And so until then, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.